What's up, Drew? Thanks for joining me. Welcome to the channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. So, for people who might not be familiar, might not have heard our podcast episode that we did, you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what you've done so far, Amazon wise?
Yeah, well, I'm Drew FBA. I started around 3 years ago, doing like the like hot items during COVID. Got sent home from college, and then just kind of like ripped that stuff, built up a little bit of bankroll, and started with the OA stuff. Started pretty hot, especially compared to like most people these days. But I think it's just because there was more opportunity then, especially because like all the shortages, that kind of thing. Then built that kind of up. I was doing like 50K a month, 70K a month, got up to like 100K months consistently. And now I'm probably on pace to do about 2.5 mil this year total, but that could be, either direction. I don't really know. It depends how much I want to spend, I guess.
Sure. And we're getting into the good time of year to do that, back to school, Q4, that kind of thing. And then in terms of the current operation, so you have, as we were talking about off camera, I feel like a very aspirational OA operation. I know you run it fully remote, prep centers, VAs. Let's talk about that.
Yes, I use one prep center. I'm kind of moving over, trying to get another one for more seasonal opportunities. I've noticed that if you have prep centers on the West Coast, they're a bit slower than those check-in times on the East Coast. I don't know if that's my personal bias, but the people I talk to that are on the East Coast just get check-in times that are like a week or less. And West Coast, it can be 2, 3, 4 weeks. So I'm trying to split that up. So when I have a hot opportunity, I can send it to the East Coast. And then with the VA situation, I really only have one. And to be honest, I don't even really need her that much. She just does a little bit of tasks, but really I run the whole thing by myself because I really believe once you get to a certain point in OA and you kind of know what products, you know the trends, you know what you need to buy, I don't really see that a huge team is necessary, especially to get to my level. Like I don't think 2.5 mil is that big, although it probably sounds like that to a lot of listeners. In my opinion, like I think you can just get there solo pretty much.
Yeah, bro. And across a couple years, if you're constantly growing, learning new things, being active on Twitter, you're going to pick up a lot of good information, right? And it's just putting together the pieces of the puzzle, basically. The big thing, as you were mentioning, is obviously getting in quality inventory spend, which is, I'd say, the biggest problem for beginners. So, what does that look like in terms of actually going ahead and doing product research? Are we doing manual, keep a product finder, reverse sourcing? What are you typically doing?
Man, throughout the years, I've done like everything possible, and these days, oddly enough, it's hard for me to even explain it to new people. Right? I'm just like I see products, I know if it's bad, I know if it's good automatically. So it's tough for me to explain it. But I mean, keep a product finder is a huge one, and then just manual sourcing. Like there's so much value in you just taking a brand that you know and Googling that brand's name and sale afterwards and just scraping everything. And once you've seen all those products, if you know something's like $30, $40 and you see it for like 18, $20, it's a no brainer that you can buy a ton of them. And you just develop those after just like years of, seeing the same type of stuff and the same trends all the time.
Yeah, the trends is the big part, right? It's knowing when different websites have sales, knowing what coupons those websites offer. And that takes time to build up as it should, because that's where a lot of the profit is, basically. And then just kind of tracking the revenue through the years. You want to walk through like what 2020 was, 2021, 2022, and then we obviously know what you're expecting for 2023.
The 2020 wasn't much. It was probably around 250, 300K. And that was, but I guess it was only like 6, 7 months. So not too bad at that point. And then the next year, I probably did around 1.2 mil. And then last year, almost right at the 2 mil mark, maybe a little bit more. And then, yeah, this year, I just think I'm going to have a bigger Q4 than I did last year. I mean, that's the hope, right? Every year, but we'll see what happens. But that's why I think 2.5 is probably coming this year.
Yeah, and what's nice too is having been in the industry now a couple years, each year you need less inputs to get the same or slightly greater outputs because your knowledge compounds, your network compounds, stuff like that. So you want to talk a little bit about kind of the networking, the social media side of things, because I'm definitely a product that, and I think you are as well, if they're following for you a couple years too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's huge. It really, not even for just the knowledge and stuff like that, but just to have somebody to be like, this works and you need to keep doing what you're doing. Just having a voice there that says, like, you're not an idiot. You know what you're doing. To keep doing what you're doing, that's so huge. And it's hard to do that when you're just like lone wolfing it. Because I'm pretty much a lone wolf myself a lot of the times. But sometimes you just get different. You just get inputs that you would never come to the conclusion on your own. Like I talk to these really big sellers that do 5, 10, $15 million a year that aren't even really on socials. I've just found them through different things. And those guys will just tell me all the time, like, why aren't you buying more stuff? Like you could be making way more money. It's just I don't have the risk tolerance to kind of do that. But if they didn't say that, I wouldn't even buy half of what I normally would buy. It's just they give you so much confidence. So meeting people just it's the confidence is huge in this whole business.
Yeah, and just in life in general, like being in Miami now, like I start to see people just walking around that have like financially or whatever exactly what I want to have in a couple years, and like they're the exact same way. Like people are watching this thinking, "Oh my gosh, 6 figures a year in profit." When you're coming out of college, like we were a couple years ago, and your friends are signing up for 60K a year, 60 hours a week. It's tough to go ahead and conceptualize that. You can sit on Discord with the boys and make some pretty good money if you get good at it, but it is very doable right there. One thing I'm curious about, Drew, is why haven't you looked into wholesale yet, or have you?
Yeah, I have. I just think that, like I said before, I'm not very risk tolerant with a lot of stuff, so I don't like deploying tons and tons of capital in certain situations. So, what that's the big thing is I think when you're doing OA, you're making all these small orders. Like the biggest order you're going to make maybe 10 or 15K, but if you put 50K down on a wholesale order and it doesn't work, you lose like a lot. Like even if you're making 10, 15K a month, you've just wiped out 3 or 4 months of profit in one order. I think that just scares me a little bit. And I see people get wiped all the time. And then another thing is, like behind closed doors, these wholesalers are not completely transparent. They're giving out the stuff to way more people. They're doing gray area stuff. I talk to guys that get from the wholesalers, like they're almost all doing shady stuff that's like borderline, very gray area. So it's like, why even get into that at this point when my OA is doing like what I need it to do? I don't want to just spend more money on it.
Exactly, and just throw gas in the fire, basically. But some people are watching this are worried they can't get product or quantity of product with OA. So how are you going about navigating that? Are you really good at getting around cancels, or are we purely looking at websites that do allow bulk product?
Yeah, I don't. If site cancels me, I almost never try again. I know that thing is like keep trying and keep trying, and that is 100% worth it when you're not making much money or you don't know much about these sites. But once you get to a certain point, you know what sites cancel and you know what sites don't. And if I get wiped out from a big site that I buy all the time, you just find another thing. Like that's just part of the business. You just have to go over those hurdles and get better and better. But at the beginning, I would say you definitely, if you're getting canceled, there's a way around it most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time on basically everywhere except like the Targets and the Hibbits of the world. And even that, I'm sure there's some people circumnavigating that. As well, in terms of your journey the past couple years, do you have any like specific, whether it be like months, like Q4, back to school, the spring, something like that, like any big inflection point moments and any big lessons from there?
Yeah, it's a lot of talking to these people giving me confidence because I don't think I would have ever bought as much as I have on certain sales if it wasn't for someone being like, you know what you're doing, just buy more. Those things are so huge. So a lot of times, if you know the data on your end, you might still not have the confidence to buy a lot. So if you bought 10 of a product, they sell through in a week or whatever. Like you can probably buy a lot of that product, especially like on a bigger scale. So that's kind of the thing. And then realizing that there were coupons that you could use and like stacking rewards and these type of things, that stuff's obviously massive. Those are the two like biggest things, but not too many inflection points. I guess I've kind of just grown and grown steadily throughout it.
Oh, that's the way to do it, right? And I believe it was you that made this one point that, like, a good lifestyle OA business, like, you could put in the vast majority of your effort just in like 3 months of the year, 6 months of the year with back to school Q4. You want to talk a little about like kind of your thought process behind that? Because I think that actually makes a lot more sense for, especially part-time people if they just take a couple years to learn how to execute on it well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was actually just saw a tweet about this right before I got on here. And I've said that in the past that if you have the capital and you have like a normal 9 to 5 that you're doing, you have saved up money, you could make more than most people doing this full time just off 3 or 4 months out of the year. If you really know what you're doing and just can deploy that capital into products that you know that works. And honestly, if you spent more of your time focusing on those months than you did trying every month to find new stuff, you might even make more money. I think I see myself in a few years if I start different businesses and I'm kind of more hands off the OA and I don't want to do it as much. I think I'd be okay with doing like 50K a month all year and then ripping a massive, August, November, and December. Because I think that you really don't have to have that much time put in to just buy enough products to give yourself a 300, 400K a month in those months.
And go pull up and get the Airbnb in Delaware or something, and FBM or something like that. Yeah, that's what I think. Some of my boys are actually doing that this year and everything. In terms of going ahead and executing on, let's call it August, which is when this video is dropping, or November, December, what are some tips you have for that? Because that's like a huge point of building confidence for a lot of people. I know it was for me. We just got to make sure they get those big months.
Yeah, I think the best point I can make about this stuff, and I think if anyone takes anything from this video, this is what you need to take, is that when you're preparing for these moments like right now in August or in December, now is not the time to prepare for this stuff. Like 2 months before, 3 months before is when you really need to prepare. I'm starting this month to prepare for December and November. And at the end of this month, I'll be already looking at what I need to do for December and doing that kind of thing. Not that you can't make the money right now, because with FBM, you can prepare last second, literally. You can go to the store and do it. But if you're wanting to pull up massive, massive months, like life changing money months, you need to be preparing 2 and 3 months out. It's a big deal, and you can't do it last second because you're scrambling too much. It's way easier to not have as much pressure on you and look into that stuff months like prior. Like the people that I mentor and talk to now, I'm like, you guys need to be getting ready. Like right now, we're about to be grinding the next 3 months, and then you're kind of just letting it be on. If you've sent all this inventory in FBA, you're just letting it fly through for those last two, and you're just catching little opportunities if you got them, good sales that you can sell next year, or whatever it is.
And definitely gauging pricing. Like I drag buy boxes to the moon in December once the seller counts get low. And that's the kind of thing, man. Like the money's in the micro optimizations, right? It's in getting stuff listed right when it touches down FBM, getting it out FBA as quick as possible, being on your prep center and make sure they send stuff in, looking when you're listing products about where the buy box is going, not just where the lowest price is, right? Optimizing your pricing, talking with the boys too. It's like, that's got to be like the biggest thing, man. You know what I mean? It's like everyone we know that does this, they got people they're talking to every day. And the key is you just got to get out of your comfort zone and get on Twitter and Instagram if you're watching this, and then you'll make some friends and then it'll be a lot easier. It's just tough to see that when you got to pick up the camera the first time, man. Right there, but you got to do it. You got to do it. And I know you like really, I feel like the past like 6, 7 months started going harder with that. What was the motivation behind that?
I don't really know what the huge motivation. I think I was just getting bored being by myself and doing that stuff. And I had some people that I had talked to in months past that I was sharing a lot with, and I wasn't getting much back. And so I kind of cut those like relationships off. And I'm like, I need to find some like real killers on here that not only will help me in the online like OA business and stuff, but really just life. Like you were saying, going to Miami and seeing people, probably selling stuff that ain't nothing to do with Amazon, but like that's going to motivate you to do certain things with your business, all the businesses you run. That's kind of, I was like, I need to like think outside the box here. And I knew that the only way to do it was to put my personality out there, and people that would relate to me would gravitate towards me. And that's what happened.
And it's clearly worked. Yeah, like we have a super popular Buy Box Bandits episode that we did with that. And then like a really big important point, that I feel like we got to bring up, right, is that this is not the last business we'll do, probably, right? Online arbitrage, like, and most people, dude, the thought of going to the thrift store, going out and doing retail arbitrage is like, how am I going to go do this for 15 years? You're not. You move up in vehicle as you get more capital, as you get more scale, as you meet more people. And it's just tough to see that when you're initially new. But like, especially us being young guys, man, like the sky's the limit with future stuff in the coming years. It's just going to be much higher upside than purely just flipping products, dealing with order cancels, everything like that, basically. On that. So in terms of as we finish up here, like what are some things maybe you would do differently or mistakes you see a lot of beginners make?
I mean, a big one is I think a lot of people think they know more than they really think they know when they see some of these products. And I see a lot of beginners get wrecked buying too much of something and then having dead inventory. Because although even if you make $1,000 in a month, and let's say you start with $4,000, you make $1,000. If you spend it on $6,000 worth of product, and that product doesn't sell, it's just sitting there, you've lost $2,000. Like you're down in your business. So getting rid of stale inventory and not making too big of buys on stuff that you're not sure about, that's a huge one I think beginners do. And then I mean not networking and not trying to talk to other people, that's big as well. You need to do that just for the confidence aspect, if nothing else. Not if you're not even interested in learning from anybody else, which you should be.
Sure.
You just need to have the confidence.
Yeah, and like bringing up like the lone wolf side of things, dude, it's like way harder if you're doing it on your own. It's also way less fun if you're doing it on your own too. You know what I mean? Like some of the most fun times in my life are like the late nights on Discord with people and stuff, because you can choose exactly who you talk to, right? If you want to like get a job or something, you can't choose who you talk to. We're insanely lucky to choose when you work, choose who you talk to, that kind of thing. And I'm, very thankful for the freedom that this provides if you get good at it, which obviously takes a long time on that. And then as we finish up here, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, Drew FBA on Twitter and Instagram. More active on Instagram these days, so follow me there. I'm trying to put out more content.
Absolutely. Checked you out, as well as we have a really good Buy Box Bandits episode we did maybe in January, February. So if you guys haven't checked that out, make sure you do. I'll link it down below as well. But thanks for coming on and spitting some game. Looking forward to doing more of this stuff in the future.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate it a ton having me on.
Cool. Have a good one, guys. Thanks a lot.